Good afternoon, and welcome to the Engineering Talent Awards nominee interviews. This is a series of webinar interviews led by myself and Fayon Dixon in discussion with those who've been nominated at this year's awards. The Engineering Talent Awards are hosted by Equal Engineers. Equal Engineers are an organisation focused on improving the diversity and inclusion of the engineering industry. The awards were of course scheduled to take place in April, but due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, are now scheduled to take place on the 9th of September. A link to this and all the webinars in this series will be available for sharing once each is complete. In today's webinar, I'm here talking to Catherine Bruce of BAE Systems, who is nominated for Engineering Returner of the Year. Catherine followed the STEM returners route to step from super yachts to Navy ships, but has shown that her transferable knowledge, coupled with the strong development programme for engineering careers at BAE, means she is rapidly heading towards a senior management role, something no one could have foreseen before she received the invite from STEM returners on LinkedIn. Catherine is proof that an unconventional career path can be a successful one. Now, today, we will not be doing any visuals, very excitingly, because Catherine is currently at work. So to protect Navy security, this will just be an audio conversation. Hi, Catherine.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Fantastic. Well, I would say it's quite warm here, but since you're in an office, I imagine it's beautifully air conditioned.
I'm hiding in a conference room that hasn't been used for a while, so actually I'm quite comfortably warm, shall we say?
Well, I will jump straight into questions then. So, Kat, can you explain what you do as an engineer on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. So basically, I work for the Maritime Services section of BAE, which looks after the maintenance, upkeep, and improvement programs on a quantity of the Navy ships, including the QEC carrier, Type 45s, Type 23s, and the Batch 2 and Batch 1 APVs, the offshore patrol vessels. It's the latter of these that I work with the department of, supporting their engineering side. So our department works slightly differently from some of the others, but we work on more of a commercial model. So each ship has a ship manager who basically looks after the ship and is on full-time communication with the crew and basically helping support them with the maintenance and any modifications and upgrades that the ministry wants to make to the vessels. I then sit with those ship managers and I support them from an engineering perspective. So if maybe we come across an issue that's come up, say a performance issue or a material defect, and it's across all the vessels, then that's where I'll step in, across all the batch twos. That's where I'll step in and help resolve that. And anything that's a little bit more complicated or unusual, and also any sort of product safety related type issues, I'll also be supporting the ship managers on that. And then sort of liaise with them, basically looking for design solutions, working with the OEMs, working with the Naval Ships branch of BAE, who originally built the vessels and still got one more to launch later this year. So it's quite diverse, a lot of really across the board of the different systems that we have on the ships. So looking at everything from mechanical systems, hydraulics, electrical, electronics, monitoring systems, and then all the sort of hotel services as well that go along with having people living aboard a vessel. So air conditioning and refrigeration systems, sewage treatment plants, all those kind of sides of it as well that sometimes people forget exist on a ship. When you kind of
Yeah, wow, there's an awful lot of things.
Yeah, and I mean that's where my past helped me with the role I do now, really.
So, I mean, that's really like rich and varied on a day to day. I mean, that must keep things very interesting, surely.
Yes, definitely. And I think that is what I really enjoy about it. You know, I kind of, you're not stuck just working in enormous detail on one product. You're a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none in some respects. But it's that engineering principle that you're using every day of like, okay, is this working correctly? If it's not, how should it work? What things make it work? What could be the root cause of this? And then also using your engineering judgment for what you could do to resolve it, to improve it, to get better performance out of it, longer life. We're just constantly working on making these vessels as reliable and efficient as we can.
So it's basically like extreme troubleshooting.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Was this always an industry that interested you?
I think probably wouldn't have necessarily put my finger on naval ships, but I mean, I remember before I selected what degree I wanted to do, I had contemplated naval architecture. Um, I hadn't really got into sailing or anything like that at that point. And I was kind of guided into mechanical engineering by careers advisors at school because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and they said that would be very broad.
Mm.
And I could get, I'd have more options after university. It wasn't until I was at university I started sailing with some friends and kind of really enjoyed that. But I went on after uni and went and worked in the automotive industry, and just didn't really think a lot more about sort of. I mean, I carried on sailing as a bit of a hobby, but it wasn't anything I thought really much about having as a career. And then after a while, I thought didn't really enjoy what I was doing. The industry was under a lot of pressure at the time as well. Wasn't massively in love with living in the Midlands. I guess I kind of probably subconsciously missed the sea actually, and having grown up sort of a bit more coastal. And yeah, so I decided to go sailing and decide what I wanted to do with my life. So that's kind of how I ended up a bit more maritime, really.
And is that what led you to working on super yachts?
Yeah, so I'd started doing a kind of on deck type job, working on some boats on the south coast of the UK, just out of Portsmouth, doing day sailing, day trips basically, and spoke to a few more people that were a bit more into sort of sailing as an industry. And when they found out I was an engineer, they were like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing on deck? There's a massive calling for engineers. Get yourself down to the
Wow.
Mediterranean, and go and see what happens." So yeah, basically hadn't been earning very much money at all in the UK, in the sailing type world. It was very much a kind of season air type job. So I went down to the Med and managed to get on a boat, sailing across the Atlantic to the Caribbean. It was a paid job, which was quite good for a first one of those.
Sounds it.
And on the way across, spent quite a lot of time talking with the captain, who was very enthusiastic and showed me some of the basics of what to do, and systems on the yacht we sailed across on, which was only 65-footer. And then got across the Caribbean and managed to get myself on a 50-meter motor yacht as a second engineer.
Wow.
Which was a pretty big step change. And I remember standing in the engine and looking around going, well, I know those are the generators and those are the engines, but I haven't got a clue what anything else in here does.
So
So
quite a
it's
steep
bit of
learning curve then.
yeah, for sure. But I was really lucky. My first chief engineer was ex-Navy, and so they've always got the sort of philosophy of teaching, down through the generations. And so he explained things to me as well as showing what I needed to do. And sort of 9 months later, I took my first sole engineer job, and then basically did that for about 10 years. So before moving on to sort of project managing the engineering side of major refits of super yachts for a couple of years as well.
Wow. So your experience on the super yachts, I mean, has that prepared you well for your time at BAE?
Yeah, totally. I think having a lot of sea time means that you can really understand how the crew are using these, and what it feels like when things go wrong. So when they express a concern about the reliability of something, you know what that means. So yeah, and I think just that the experience of having serviced some of the kit, just understanding that, the space you need to take a filter off, or the effort it requires to work at something with your hands above your head and you can't see what you're doing. Just those little things that makes a
Mhm.
massive difference.
Yeah, and it must be so much easier to then relay when you need people to do these things, when you can talk from experience and I've done this.
Yeah, and I think, there's so much you can learn about the kit from theory and from books and looking at OEM manuals and design and things, but until you've actually spent time on a vessel with it in your hands or in bits in your hands, you don't really get to learn this kit properly until something happens to it and you have to really get into the weeds with it. That's when you really start learning systems. And
So you don't
as a
really learn
sole,
it until it breaks.
yeah, exactly. And there's a sole
Wow.
engineer on the super yachts. You do have to get into all the systems. So
Yeah.
you do get that really broad experience, which I think some of the Navy guys even don't get because they're in their departments of electrical or mechanical and things. So in some ways, I can be a little bit more broad than them. Maybe not as detailed,
Mm.
trained, but yeah. So I can have conversations across the board with all of their technical crew.
Fantastic. As a STEM returner, what was it that made you decide to take the leap and return to engineering? I mean, I know in many ways you didn't leave, but what's your feelings on that?
Um, Basically, I've been doing, as I said before, I've been doing project engineering for CP yacht refits, but it involves going to where the yacht is being refitted, and moving around. And I kind of really wanted to get back to having roots in one place and actually just have a bit more of a normal life rather than living on someone else's schedule, or moving not just house but moving country maybe every 9 months, 6 months type thing.
Yeah, of course.
So I ended up taking a job as a general manager of a boat building company down in Cornwall. They built super yacht tenders and had their own range of sort of motorboats, sort of 35 foot and under. But I found as general manager, I was actually spending, probably 50, 60% of my time doing HR, which I could do, but it wasn't really my forte. And a lot of time doing sort of production process improvement and stuff, which I do quite enjoy that as a process. Again, it's that problem solving side of things. But I realized that if I wanted to be able to keep my hand in the engineering, I needed to be part of a bigger engineering company, where there was an engineering career rather than just an engineer in the company. And so I started looking a bit further and wider, and started putting things on LinkedIn and stuff. And that's where STEM returners and I came together. And they suggested that I had a chat with BAE, given my marine background.
Fantastic. I mean, LinkedIn is a story I've heard time and time again. People have come, return to engineering. So, it's really interesting. When you joined BAE, what was that learning curve like?
It was more of a vertical line, to be honest. I mean, I think the bit I was most comfortable with was the marine systems, engineering systems, but everything else was new. The scale of the company, working with the Navy, the processes, learning how the Ministry of Defence works, the absolutely like the thesaurus size list of acronyms and terms and things was huge. So the first few meetings I remember sitting in and just not knowing what people were talking about. So yeah, and just the scale of the site here, it's more than a mile across. So just the size of everything that's going on.
It must be quite intimidating.
I don't know if I really felt intimidated. It was just more a bit kind of bamboozled, really, I guess.
Well,
but, I mean,
you keep a cooler head than me. I'm sure I'd be intimidated.
But everyone here is super nice, and yeah, that soon learned that you can ask questions of anyone. So yeah, it's been great.
That's good. You've gone on to mentor other STEM returners. Was that something that was important to you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, as I was just saying, that initial kind of 3 to 6 months where just so much is new, you're almost getting your Google Maps out to get from one end of the office to the other, or the site to the other. That's that bit, having someone else just going, that's okay, that's normal. You're not out of your depth being here. It's just that it is very different. I think is really important, because that was something that sort of did worry me a little bit, but I had a lot, because I was in the first batch of STEM returners that they brought into the company. There was that extra support, and I think, but just being able to give a bit of information and a bit of, just a bit of feedback and answer questions from the guys that are coming in. I think it's a great route. I mean, engineering as an industry is short of people, and yet people out there that actually can do it. It's just trying to get that marry up of people into the door, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who was considering returning?
I think if you can, well, firstly, go to the STEM returners. It's part of IMAREST, that set up as the STEM returners page. Go there and talk to those guys. They've got loads more stuff coming on. A lot of companies are really picking up on it. If there's a particular industry or company that you want to go and work with, or you like what they're doing and you want to try and get in there, I would try and get hold of some of their engineering or technical people, and have a chat with them. Maybe see if there's any kind of like trade shows they're going to, or just try and get them on the phone for half an hour, and just get a little bit of a chat about what they actually do, what your role would be if you were to get into the company, what's available. And then a little bit of advice about the kind of things that they think they might be looking for, and then try and talk to the HR department as well, because people, they want to recruit you, they want to recruit the right people. It's just sometimes that the translation between what the engineering teams want how that goes through HR, how that gets advertised, and then how you read and understand those adverts. I remember not very long ago, one of our managers put out an advert, or was going to put out an advert for doing the same job role as me. And he showed it to me beforehand, and actually I didn't understand what some of the things that the requirements were for it, because he'd used some acronyms and some of the things that he said must be. And I'm like, well, I don't have those. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, oh yeah, okay. People have come up through the Navy and then come across to BAE, and it's just normal bread and butter. They've been talking this language since they were 16. So, and I'm sure that happens in lots of companies. You've got a lot of people that have been there a long time, and just really translating some of that across. If you're trying to bring people to step across from one industry to another that have got transferable skills, it's just sometimes breaking down that corporate language really to be transferable. So by picking up the phone, I think that's a good thing, because part of the STEM returners, they invite you to go and have chats with the companies. It's like a sort of interview type thing, and to be honest, it bypasses that HR CV filter, and you actually have to go and talk to them. I mean, I went to an Atkins, did a very good day up in London as well, where they brought in engineers from all their different departments, and that was really interesting. And they were quite, people saw your CV and were quite keen, and actually some of them gave you tips on, if you put this in your CV as well, then that's going to mean more to what we're trying to do here. So yeah, I think there's loads of good recruitment stuff out there. I think you got to just move away from just looking at the job ads and actually get to talk to the companies directly.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, there's lots of real, tangible takeaway advice there. Often, you can get lots of lovely pleasantries, but I think you included some real good, strong advice there that I think anybody that's considering returning to a STEM career should really listen to. So that's fab. I mean, you touched on adverts being a little intimidating, which is something that I've heard of more recently. So, I mean, in order to, you're in a way sort of a bit like a trailblazer, because you've come into somewhere through a different sort of route. You said that the usual standard route really would just be through the Navy.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, having kind of opened that door from the super yachting into BAE as well, they've encouraged me to use some of my contacts back in super yachting and see if there was more people. And I've actually got another ex super yacht engineer is due to join us in a couple of weeks' time.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
So that's real, tangible change again, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming across from New Zealand as well. So, I mean, really starting to try and get into the engineering from the global market point of view.
Fantastic. So, BAE held a workshop with female students looking at engineering careers. What was that like?
Yeah, that was really good fun actually. We did that for the Women in Engineering Women Engineer Day last year. Basically, we did there's some workshops looking at sort of the engineering project type things, and like what is engineering, by doing a sort of working example of, you look at a problem, work it out, and then present a solution type thing. And I got asked to do a presentation talking about how I got into engineering, and sort of, what I do. So some of the things we've discussed today really. And we got some really positive feedback from that. And one of the things I found was really interesting actually was that the other graduates who were doing same sort of presentations as myself, we all had I thought I wanted to do something else before I got here.
Right.
Part in our presentation, people wanted to be vets or doctors or, all those kind of different other, but they were also science type based. But it was, I think the fact that you can change career was something that a lot of the students found were kind of like, oh, because you go, as you sort of go up through school, when you get to choose your GCSEs, you choose them and that's it. You do them till you've done your exam and you're finished, and you choose your A levels and you do it till it's finished, and you choose your degree. And then suddenly someone says, choose your degree, choose your career. And you're like, hang on a minute, do I have to choose that until I'm retired? And nobody says, no, you just start, and it's okay to change. You can change quite drastically or change a little bit, and it'll still work. You don't have to pick the lifetime job. You just pick what you want to get interested in now. And
Absolutely.
that's quite a revelation for some of them actually. It took a bit of pressure off having to get it right first time.
I mean, I think certainly careers advice at schools, could be better. I mean, I've heard that from a couple of people. Do you think that perhaps is there a disparity between men and women being, suggested STEM careers? Do you think at school?
Um, it's a bit difficult for me to answer really because I'm not very involved in sort of at schools. I mean, you were talking about the day that we did was really only with the girls.
Yourself personally, did you experience that, or was it always you always thought that was something that would be interesting to yourself?
I'm kind of show my age a bit now. I went to an all
Oh,
girls secondary school. When I arrived, they still had a typing room, and and the year that I left, they were just opening up the design technology lab, and thought they were being quite cutting edge for a girls' school to have a design technology lab. So it wasn't really, that they were pretty open minded about it. But just to be honest, nobody really knew much about engineering. I was quite lucky that I had an uncle who was in management of an engineering company, and so and my dad sort of quite technically orientated and had sort of other contacts in engineering companies and things. So I kind of was aware of engineering, but I don't think it was something there was ever any careers advice for or against. It wasn't.
yeah, I think you hear a lot of that, which is a shame. Speaking about your own career route, I mean, you were offered a permanent role after only 8 weeks of the 12-week STEM returner program. I mean, that must have felt pretty good.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Because I think there was a little bit of trepidation on both parties' behalf. I was the first sort of STEM returner, and I think that lack of knowledge of really what a yacht engineer does, I think they thought I was probably better driving a gin and tonic than anything else. So so to
Good
suddenly
skill to
find
have
out
as well.
yeah, to actually find I had a bit more in-depth knowledge, and I think just that kind of as when you're the only engineer on the boat, if you don't do it, no one will. So you have that drive to get up and go and do it, and I think that was that was really appreciated. And yeah, I think they just sort of jumped at the chance and said, actually, we don't need to keep sort of dragging you through the process. Let's just get on with it and get you on board, keep you.
That's brilliant.
Because yeah, no, it was really good.
I
Big
guess as well
compliment.
with there being such a a skills gap. I guess when they find somebody that they really want, they take them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think BA are very aware as there's a lot of knowledge involved in working with these vessels, so they make a really big effort in keeping people as well. So whether that's through support, sort of pastoral support, through career development, being one of the first things they said to me was, look, if you find that we've put you in a job that doesn't suit you, come and talk to us. BA is massive. We've got land, aviation, cyber,
Wow,
developments all over the world. We'll move you within the corporation if you don't think this bit's right, or we'll move you within the company or within the site or within the team. Just come and talk to us and say what's right and wrong and keep that conversation open.
that's fantastic. I wish
So,
more employers were as open as that.
yeah, no, it's been really heartening actually.
And then that must put staff at ease because there's nothing worse, is there, when you feel that you're in the wrong role, but to know that you've got that freedom is brilliant.
Yeah, and I think normally you don't really nobody really wants to leave a company as well. You found a good job, you're excited
Yeah,
about starting, you don't want to go, but if there's things that can be done that are better, quite often you have the conversation and suddenly it's like actually you don't have to change a lot if you want to do that. So yeah, no, it's been.
fantastic. I mean, you yourself are no stranger to award nominations. In 2019, you were nominated for Women in Defence Engineering Excellence Award, which is very exciting. And you also won the 2019 Team Portsmouth Safety First Engineering Award. What does it mean to receive recognition like that and obviously be nominated at the Engineering Talent Awards?
Yeah, I think starting with the sort of Team Portsmouth Safety Award, I mean, when I heard I'd won it, I don't think I really appreciated what I'd done at the time because it felt like a bit like I was just doing my normal day job. I just sort of got on and did it, um, and I certainly wasn't trying to do things for awards. And it wasn't really till I got to the award night and I realised, the room was filled with directors and admirals and air marshals and a
It's a
lot
big
of a
deal.
lot of black ties and candles and oak panels, and I thought, okay, actually, this is really quite a big deal. And actually, when you listen to what a lot of the other people awarded around the company and or around the site, because the Team Portsmouth is a combination of the Ministry of Defence the Navy and BAE. When you look at the scale of the number of people that are involved in that team is huge. So yeah, to win that award was really, I really realised that was a massive achievement, and I think it's just partly is that just not only actually you're doing a really good job, but the fact that you've been recognised as that.
Absolutely.
It's really, it's just a great reward, really.
And it's lovely to, as you say, to win something or even be nominated for something when you weren't sort of actively going after it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think for these awards, my sort of motivation for applying and pleased about obviously getting shortlisted is that it really trying to get that message across to both people looking to get back into engineering and then the companies trying to recruit is just, it is possible to find more people out there than you think. But there's other routes you need to get through, and perhaps sometimes it's just looking a bit beyond the CVs, and actually talking to people and trying to get a bit more of that direct face to face. I think that's
keeping a bit more of an open mind, really, in a way.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because I mean, if you've got someone working in an industry that you're not familiar with, and you're trying to express what you've done in your life in a couple of pages of A4, sometimes it's quite difficult to communicate what overlapping skills and knowledge that you might have. You
Absolutely.
don't know that they want it and they don't know you've got it. And it's a bit of a missed opportunity, but sometimes when you actually start the face-to-face conversation, or you put the two technical guys together, they'll quite often get round to that, oh, you do know about that, chat quite quickly.
I think that's really, really important. And you see it in lots of industries. But I mean, obviously in engineering, it's probably even more apparent. So what is next for you at BAE? I think you've taken on some systems design authority. Is that right?
Yeah, so I mean, I've still got my full-time-ish role, looking after the batch twos, engineering support for those guys.
Which sounds like a full-time job in itself, and then some.
Well, sort of to support the extra work I've got coming along, as you say, as a system design authority, it's basically on looking at some ship monitoring equipment. I've also just been lent an apprentice and another engineer. So yeah, again, that's just a great part of BAE is that in the size of what we are here. I said I started thinking my workload was getting a bit big and I need some help, and questions were asked around the company, and engineering support was moved over to me. So, again, another advantage of not just being the only one in the company, I think. So,
yeah, absolutely. And working for a company of that scale with such resources, it must be, wonderful to get that help when you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, slightly personal question here, but I find this quite fascinating. Do you have any hobbies that cross over with your engineering career? Because I mean, some people like to, use their downtime to do very similar things and, use all those skills again and probably build advanced Meccano sets and things. And then other people, it's something totally different to use the other side of their brain and relax.
Yeah, I mean, I do sort of quite a few sports and things, and that's the relax the brain. I mean, I guess one of my hobbies, I do quite a bit of like art and drawing and things, and I think that almost feeds the other way. Having, I've been really lucky that it's a sort of talent that's been quite strong in my family. My grandfather was a professional artist and things, so that actually helps me in my work. When you're trying to communicate something or you're trying to explain how something could be made, and just being able to get a pen and paper and draw, sort of a bit of an exploded diagram or a sort of section of something you're trying to explain is just, I feel so lucky that I've got that tool
That must really help actually to be able to get that across so quickly and so clearly to people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my drunken spider diagrams would not help anybody understand anything and never have done. We've had one question come in quickly, which I will ask, if that's all right. Quite interesting. So what are the challenges in keeping the information that you work on secure and secret?
There's quite a lot of business process and protocol around that. So basically, it's an awareness that what you are working with is, it is defence, part of the sort of nation's defence. So it's just a lot of it's common sense. I mean, most of our work that we do is on site. Your computers and everything are all very highly cyber secure, and then just really not, just common sense. Don't talk about it. Don't put it on social media in detail. I mean, I can talk about roughly what I do, but not the detail of it. Yeah, know the colleagues and make sure when you're dealing with external OEMs that you've got non-disclosure agreements in place, and go from there, really.
So mostly common sense, really, by the sounds of it. I mean, I think maybe it sounds to people sort of like a bigger, scarier process than it probably actually is in real life.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you're working in a sort of any company developing any new technology, you're going to have a degree of that secrecy for your own corporate knowledge, really, and against the competitive market. So it's not drastically different from that. It's just, it's the consequences of it getting in the wrong hands is just a bit more significant, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kat, I think that's pretty much it for everything that I had to ask you. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been really, really interesting. I've loved it.
My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone, for watching. And please do remember to share the link from this webinar. Until next time, it's goodbye. And we look forward to finally being able to celebrate the Engineering Talent Awards with you later this year. Bye-bye.